Hello, 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 hello. Hello. Fine. Good afternoon everyone. Welcome to UPSC Guide Daily Current Affair Analysis. Yes, so we are currently going to deal with UPSC Guide Analysis on the Hindu newspaper, right? So what we are going to deal with. So yesterday's, if you can see, if you go through what happened yesterday, that is what will be given in your newspaper. So yesterday is a day where we have received our economic survey. So definitely that is of important topic for you UPSC as well as national current affairs. So that will be occupying major part of your current affairs today, right? So we'll be dealing with what are the things that I've mentioned in this newspaper regarding your economic survey. So things that we are going to deal with. I'll be dealing with all the articles that poses importance for your UPSC, and your editorials part will be dealt with another faculty on a weekly basis. So twice a week will be dealt on only editorial part, right? So now let us go to the important articles. I've just marked out what are the important parts of the articles that poses importance for your UPSC. So let's see what is the first article about. GDP to grow 6.5% in 2023-24 says economic survey, which means, so in the upcoming or in this current financial year, your current projection of GDP, gross domestic product, will be around 6.5% says the economic survey. So what are the other things that it says? The pandemic induced blues are over and India on a stronger wicket now. That means what has happened during pandemic, what are the losses, let's say about the supply chain disruptions or any kind of issues that we have faced during pandemic has been over, and we have regained the path which was existing post or pre-pandemic, which was existing the case. We have gained back to that particular growth levels. That says the survey. Next, need to stay vigilant on inflation and current account deficit. So inflation is your price rise, and let's go with the current account deficit. So what is your current account deficit? Just a smaller introduction, I am not going into depth. Let's see what is your current account deficit. Okay. So the country is importing more goods and services than it is exporting. So if we would have heard about the balance of trade, so if we are importing more goods than something which we are exporting, so that gives you your negative trade balance. So that's what says your current account deficit. So which is your current account, which includes net income on what? Interest and dividends and transfer from abroad, say let's say remittances or foreign aid or foreign direct investment or foreign portfolio investments, which are usually a small fraction of the total. So in this, what we are including in your current account deficit, only that matters. So you have current account deficit which deals with interest payments, dividends, then what say net income on interest, dividends, then transfers from abroad. So that means what is this transfers from abroad? So if there is a person, suppose a family member has went abroad, he or she is earning, then that amount they are again sending back to the country. So that transfers from abroad. So every country will have all these things, right? So the level of exports is less than the level of imports for a country. That shows it deficit in current account. So all these are your deficits of current account, which is your CAD, current account deficit. So just a small understanding about current account deficit. Coming to inflation. So what is inflation? Inflation, price rise. So every year the amount or the price value increases. So we have inflation targeting. So RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, targets the inflation, the price rates. The market existing inflates every year. So we calculate it on an annual basis. So here what? We have a target of 2 plus or minus 4% basically, which is targeted by RBI. So what we need to do as part of this particular current affair, what survey says is that we need to stay vigilant on inflation and current account deficit. That means we need to work on stabilizing the current account deficit as well as inflation. Next, solid domestic demand and a pickup in capital investment board growth. That means, so capital investment. So we have different kinds of level of we can use whatever the product or whatever the income that we are gaining, we can purchase or we can revenue. So there is thing called expenditure. So we have different kinds of expenditures, right? So let's say here only. Here what they say is that capital investment. So investment on asset creation. What is asset? So let's say I am investing on a building. After a few years or after a different period of time, I gain something from that particular investment, or with that particular expenditure I gain something. That is what your capital investment is. So here the solid domestic demand and a pickup in capital investment board growth. That means currently this financial year or the previous economic survey says about what happened in the previous year. So the previous year what it says, our capital investment has grown. That has been inducing growth in our country. That's what one of the highlights of your survey. Next, painting an exuberant. So what it says, painting an exuberant picture of the India's economy prospects. Let me zoom it out. Let me zoom it a bit so that it will be clear. Yes. So the new age, thanks to the new age reforms undertaken since 2014, economic survey tabled by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in Parliament on Tuesday asserted that not only there were pandemic induced blues over, but the outlook for the next years ahead was also rosier than the pre-COVID years. That means the level of growth that we are attaining or we are going to attain in this financial year is greater than the pre-pandemic levels. So next, India's growth GDP would be 6.5%, would grow 6.5% in 2023-24, and after an estimation of 7% this year, supported by solid domestic demand and a pickup in capital investment. So it is portraying or it is showcasing the level of growth in capital investment. The Indian economy 2022-23 has nearly recoupled with what was lost and renewed what had paused and re-energized what slowed down during the pandemic since the conflict in Europe. So understand clearly what happened to Indian economy. It has recoupled what was lost. It has got back into existence of pre-pandemic level. Next, renewed. So renewed itself to being what was earlier. Then re-energized. So you have to understand three terminologies which they have used: recoupled, renewed, re-energized. Recoupled, renewed. As this is about your economic survey, which is important for your current exam and can be like for this exams, this year exams, whatever is there, this particular economic survey poses you a lot of like what we can say, it is more of importance for your exam attempt. That is why I am focusing a lot on this particular article. After that, we will not be discussing much about other articles. Okay, this is like for year, this is important, no? That is why I am discussing more about it. Renewed, recoupled, and what? Re-energized. So that was the term that they have used. Re-energized. Term that they have used to describe the Indian economy, which can be directly used in your answers. Okay. Important. So next, since the conflict in Europe. So next, uncertain times, what happened? Here what is important again? Inflation no deterrent. The central bank's estimation of 6.8% retail inflation for 22-23 is outside its targeting range. So I have already told you what is the inflation targeting. RBI basically every financial year it targets an amount of inflation. That means it should be within that particular level of inflation. So what is the targeted inflation that RBI had, which is 2 plus or minus 4%. That means it can be, 4 plus or minus 2%. So it can be from 2% range to 4 plus 2. That means 4 minus 2, 2% to 4 plus 2, 6%. So the targeted range is from 2% of inflation to 6%. But what was the achieved inflation here? It was 6.8% retail inflation, which is more than the existing inflation targeting. So it should be under the existing pace. Okay. So but at the same time, it is not high enough to deter private consumption and also not to weaken the inducement to invest. That means it is not on a base like this inflation can be taken into control. So and also it gives enthusiasm or it gives chances, ample of chances to investors to invest into our economy, because our rupee is still in a constant way. It is a stable economy in India. So it weakens the inducement. So it is also not so low as to weaken the inducement to invest, which says that it gives enthusiasm or interest to investors to invest into the country. That can be domestic investors or foreign investors. We expect that if the global economy slows down, as the IMF, many people project that the commodity prices should retreat the back and monetary tightening. As of now, US economy, so it's all about basically what they are projecting about. So as of now, US economy looks set to avoid full-fledged formal recession. So you can see, let me discuss about this term. As of now, that means current market trend, what is happening? United States economy looks set to avoid full-fledged formal recession. So it is still not accepting that it is in recession. Formal recession in the sense, formally accepting that yes, US has entered into the phase of recession. It hasn't given any such kind of statement, so it is not formally accepting, but what is underlying thing that is happening? You can see recently in this week current affairs, you would have seen almost 12,000 employees from Google company alone were laid off. They were removed from the company. So that shows the level of recession existing in the market, right? The same thing, despite there is no formal recession or there is no formal acknowledgement of recession from US, but it is clearly visible that the recession has been started. But that is not the case of India, which is what saying the survey. And therefore, this January already we have seen the crude oil prices and industrial metal prices are higher than they were end of December. So portraying or supporting that existence of or the recession has started, to support that the recession has started, it is evident in the crude oil and metal, industrial metal prices hiking up. Okay. So that is about your survey gist. We will also see what it says about your education and all. There are some articles which has discussed about different areas where survey has covered, because if you would have seen economic survey document, it is around 400 plus page document. Earlier there used to be two documents based on economic survey, but from the recent years it is like only single document that is being launched for economic survey. So just we can also discuss about the gist as well, not now but later. Fine. Next, let's go to the next article. So I will be discussing whatever is important for your UPSC. Rest all articles I will not be much focusing on. State wise articles I am skipping out, okay. Next. Which is important, let me see, just a moment. Yes, this particular article is important for not only UPSC, I mean just the thing that is an update in part of India, so that is important. What is this article about? AP capital will be shifted to Vizag in a few months, says Jagan. So, AP capital was in a conflict that it can be either Amaravati or any three other cities which was earlier named by our Chief Minister Mr. Jagan Mohan Reddy of Andhra Pradesh. So, currently what they have given statement yesterday is that this within 3 months span or within few months span, our capital city of Andhra Pradesh would be Vizag or Visakhapatnam. Vizag or Visakhapatnam, both are same. So, that is an update. Nothing more than that is required from this particular article. Because in India wise, a capital is being changed. So, just a part of importance, I have just explained it to you. Apart from that, let's see. So, editorials part will be done by other faculty, so I am not going to editorial parts also. Let's see. Yes. So, other thing is that don't take up data bill till House debates it center. So, what central government says? Don't take up the data bill. What is data bill about? Data protection bill. So, currently it is under the discussion and debate, right. So, currently we have here, so what central government has stated, to whom it is stating? To Supreme Court. What it said, so please don't take up any cases, okay. So, what it says is that please don't take up any cases on data protection bill till we discuss it about in parliament. That is what central government said. So, Supreme Court says it would examine if it should wait for parliament decision, or here please, new online data protection bill is scheduled to be introduced in the second half of budget session, which has happened today. So, you might be aware of this, what are data protection bill. So, today is February 1st, so which is your working day, and budget session has been live today in parliament. So, joint session has happened where Miss Nirmala Sitharaman, Finance Minister, has addressed the budget session. So, we will be discussing about budget highlights also in tomorrow's current affairs, okay. So, as of now what they have told, so we are in a dilemma whether to wait for the budget session to discuss about the existing data protection bill, or should we take up the pleas. Supreme Court has told that, okay, we are also thinking whether we should take this particular pleas, so whatever are getting to us. So, there will be plea that we will be giving to court to discuss about this particular matter. So, Supreme Court told that, let me think or let us understand whether we should take up these particular cases, or should we wait till parliament says something about this data protection bill. So, first thing, before going into this, let me give you a small gist about data protection bill. So, I am not only discussing about your paper, but I am also telling you how to understand your Hindu, right. Let me give a small gist about data protection bill, and we will go there. What does the bill says? So, decoding the data protection bill. So, this was an article given by Mint newspaper. So, I just wanted to give you a small gist about it. After this, we will go to our current article, right. What it means for consumers. So, and the consumer end, what does this data protection bill says? Data can be processed or shared by any entity only after their consent. So, consent is necessary. a person's consent, suppose if I am a customer end, I am in the customer end, my consent is required to share my data. So giving data protection, so my personal data is being protected as part of consumer end. Safeguards including penalties introducing to prevent misuse of personal data. Suppose if my data is being compromised, so I am a customer and my data is being compromised, then how should I proceed? What will be the level of punishment? So there can be penalties to prevent the misuse of the current personal data compromise. So that is one of the outcome which will be an outcome, still not an outcome, which will be an outcome for Data Protection Bill 2022. Next, all data to be categorized under 3 heads: general, sensitive and critical. So certain based on the data and its level of impact it poses to a country or a region or a personal one. So based on that it has been categorized into 3 types, can be general one, sensitive data and critical data. So that is regarding customer end. The government and regulatory role. So as part of government, what is this particular bill says? Government will have the power to obtain any user's non-personal data from companies. So apart from the personal data, other data, non-personal data can be obtained by government. So apart from the basic level of personal data, which is completely the personalized data, except from that the non-personal data like for the research purposes or for the survey purposes or who or what are the age group that is being involved into this particular company, except for those details, it can take up the non-personal data of the people from that particular company. Next, the bill mandates that all financial and critical data has to be stored in India. So this is where the conflict occurred. So suppose we are using Google, all of us have Gmail accounts, all of us have our photos being stored in Google Drive or Google Photos, whatever it may be. Let's say I am discussing about Google because that was the issue arise after this data protection bill came. So the main constraint is this: Google is being registered in US, it is a US based company, but we are using it and our data is being placed. So there are data centers, whatever the data we post. Let's say a picture of me, I have taken a picture, I have posted it online. Let's say it is being in my Google Photos. So this particular Google Photos saves my image and it is being placed in data centers. So Google have its own data centers, a big, like it can be a form of a room big sized data centers where it has storage units, bulk storage units, and all these are not present in our country. So it is present in US or some other based countries. So the issue what it had happened was, back then when there was elections time, there was a speculation that the data has been compromised of the people who were using Google. So that was a speculation. So what India came up with this particular bill was that whatever the data that you are obtaining, so the bill mandates that all financial and critical data has to be stored in India. So whatever the financial data or whatever the critical data that has been coming from or that has been generated from India will be stored or should be stored only in our country. Next, sensitive data has to be stored in India but can be processed outside with the consent. So other sensitive data, whatever the sensitive data, if it is produced in India, it should be stored in India and can be processed only with the consent. That means after getting consent from, it can be from user end, customer end and government end, then those data can be processed, can be analyzed, so with the consent outside India too. So that is another update. Next, what companies have to do? Social media firms to formulate a voluntary verification process for users. So there should be a voluntary verification process for the users, also taking their consent, verification process whether the user is itself logging into that particular website or that particular social media or not. Authentication, again data privacy, data security. Next, sharing data without consent will entitle a fine of 15 crore or 4% of global turnover. So compromising, so earlier I have discussed that from the customer end, if our data is being misused, so it prevents the data to be or it prevents the data from being compromised in the way of issuing penalties if the data is being misused or compromised. In the same way, what can be the level of punishment? It can be 4% of the global turnover of the particular company or 15 crores as a fine or compensation can be. Next, data breach or inaction will entitle a 5 crore or 2% global turnover. So, data breach will give a fine of 5 crore. That means, if a particular person's data is being breached without the consent, then here see, understand, this is about sharing data, this is about data breach. So, what is the difference? Sharing data entitles for 15 crore whereas data breach entitles for 5 crore. What is the difference? So, sharing data in the sense, suppose let us say election will be conducted soon. Of course, election is being conducted in 2024. Let us say election procedure has started. What is data sharing? Suppose if my opinion, based on my opinion, suppose I am favoring to a particular political party, then what would be my search list? Would be something that is favorable to that particular party. If this particular data is being compromised, if it is being shared to that particular political party, let us say this is completely fictional example, okay. So, if this particular data is being shared, it is being processed and it is being shared to the relevant person, that comes in under your sharing of data. That can be not only this particular search list, it can be your images, this can be your data, your personal details, whatever it may be, that comes under your sharing data. What is data breach? That means it is just being compromised, your data has been extracted, still unprocessed, not being shared to someone else. That is your data breach. So, this entails for 5 crore compensation or 2% of global turnover for the particular company, whereas data sharing accounts for 15 crore or 4% of the global turnover of the company. So, this is the complete gist of your data protection bill. Okay. Now, let us go to the article. What does the article say? So, article says that Supreme Court should be, what center says that please wait till we discuss about this data protection bill in Parliament. So, when it would be discussed in the second part of or second half of the budget session. So, currently if you go to Sansad TV, there you can see that the current, so the session is adjourned till 2nd of February. Why? Because they are going to take part about their own personal discussions, okay, private discussions. Next, coming to what does this particular article say? Supreme Court on Tuesday said that it would examine whether it should wait for Parliament decisions on the new online data protection bill scheduled to be introduced in the second half of the budget session, or go ahead and hear the bunch of petitions challenging WhatsApp's policy to share users' data with Facebook's group of companies. So, what is the issue here? Almost everyone in the country, almost everyone in India use WhatsApp, almost. So, what is the policy of WhatsApp? We are all aware of this particular thing that WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, all of these are under the parent company Meta. Okay. So, now what is the issue here? WhatsApp has a policy in its particular company that whatever the data it is obtaining from WhatsApp will be shared to Facebook group of companies. That means to Meta companies, it will be sharing all this particular data. Okay. So, that was okay, fine, this particular data is not, it's not visible. Let me zoom then. Thank you for letting me know. I will zoom it so that it will be clear. Is it clear now? I hope it's clear. Yurus Hussain. Okay, fine. It will be clear now. Ma'am, please explain budget. That will be in tomorrow's session. No? I will be just giving you what was mentioned in this particular news articles, okay. And budget sessions and economic survey sessions will be exclusively, like it will be a separate session, no need to worry, we will be dealing in UPSC guide website only, okay, no need to worry about that, yes, fine, okay. So, that was a plea, there was bunch of petitions from India, so different people have approached Supreme Court on challenging this particular policy of WhatsApp sharing our own data with Facebook, okay. So, now what Supreme Court told that we will examine whether, that means we will understand what are the possibilities that we can discuss on ourselves, or we can come out with a particular decision whether to deal with the improvements, or what can be the changes, or what can be things that are being offered through data protection bill. So that was Supreme Court said, but what is the thing which center told? Please wait, let us discuss first, then you can go for please. Okay, fine. But so Mr. Mehta, who is Mr. Mehta here? Appearing before Constitution bench led by Justice K.M. Joseph, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta said that the court, so he is a Solicitor General Tushar Mehta said that the court should not allow any discussion on the bill until Parliament first debates it. So before Parliament deciding on what can be the possibilities or what can be the changes in the existing bill, Supreme Court should not be taking up this particular pleas or petitions. So that is what Mr. Mehta, who is the Solicitor General of India, has told. So Mr. Mehta said that the bill presented a comprehensive legal framework for digital protection in India. So just now we have seen, no, it is giving different kinds of scenarios or different what we can say provisions to protect our data from breaching of these particular companies, right? So that is what Solicitor General told, and nothing much is required in this entirety. So that is what important. Next, let's see if there is any other article that I need to discuss with. Fine. Decisive government working without lofty ambitions. President. So who is our president? So Ms. Draupadi Murmu, our president, has told that our government is decisive, it is working on lofty ambitions. Murmu touches upon, let me zoom again, it might be not clear. Yeah. So Murmu touches upon multiple government schemes, says the programs were conceived taking all sections of the society together. She lauds various steps by the government, such as dilution of Article 370 to crack down on terrorism. So Article 370, so from the origination of 2014 for this government, they are mentioning about what are the changes that has happened. So we are kind of decisive. So they have taken a triggering, or they have taken direct decisions on certain issues which were pending for so long. So that is what Ms. Murmu, our president, has told. Okay. So yeah, what she has mentioned. President Draupadi Murmu said that on Tuesday that biggest challenge or biggest change in the 9 years since the government led by Narendra Modi assumed office center in 2014 was that every Indian's confidence is at a peak and the world outlook towards India has changed. So how we look, or the world outlook on India has changed since their government has come into picture. Okay, and they have told, and to prove that what she has mentioned about the decisions which they have taken after their government has come into picture, like Article 370. Okay, so before then there was special provisions for Jammu and Kashmir, so that provisions were removed, and Jammu and Kashmir was given the normal status which other states have. Okay, so earlier they used to have a separate constitution for Jammu and Kashmir alone, but now that is not the case. So they are also Indians, we are also Indians. Okay, fine. Next, so what does this particular article says? So from surgical attack to a firm crackdown on terrorism, from a befitting response to every misadventure, from LOC to LAC. So from LOC, line of actual control to, line of control to line of actual control, from abrogation of Article 370 to triple talaq. So triple talaq case where the divorce, the Shariat laws, where the women's dignity was under stake by the religious Shariat laws, that particular triple talaq was also removed. Next, by government has been recognized as a decisive government. So she says that with all these particular firm decisions, our government has proved to be decisive government. So apart from that, she has also mentioned about, went into details of the government program, saying that they have conceived by taking all sections of the society. So inclusive, what she says, our particular government is inclusive form of government. So we are including different sections of the society. We have not left any of the society members, right? So what she has mentioned here, And that also proves in the budget as well. If you could see today's budget session, they said that Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman has told that we are involving artisans who are the traditional artisans who create products, that can be any small products to bigger products, by using their hands. So all these artisans will be now including into MSME sector too. There will be a separate financial assistance program for artisans for the first time ever. So that also proves your financial inclusion or economical inclusion, can be societal inclusion anyways. So for all sections of the society, from the government flagships, Har Ghar Jal, so every household water. So the tap water connections to all households, to the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi income support program for farmers, PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, which is the income support program for farmers, to India assuming G20 presidency. This year we assume G20 presidency. So for that we have made several provisions. So this particular G20 will be the news which will be occurring every other day. So we will be discussing that there. Okay, fine. So we have assumed this presidency, and President spoke in detail about all these things. So all these which he has mentioned can be added in detail in your answer writing, where you can support government initiatives. Okay, that is why this article is important as part of your governance, right? Rest all. Let's see. Yes. So world is looking at India's budget with hope, asserts Modi. Simple. Let's see what is there in this particular article and we can move on. Okay, fine. So flagging an unstable global economic outlook on the eve of the presentation of union budget, Mr. Prime Minister Modi said on Tuesday that India's budget would attempt to meet the hopes and aspirations of the common citizens, adding that the whole world was looking it with hope. So whole world is looking towards India with hope on the budget, which is evident. If you would see the stocks today, it is entirely under peak. So this is a speculation that whenever there is a positive response from the citizens, not only from the citizens, from entire world, the Sensex or our particular stock market will be in huge. If the budget would have been a failure or it would have not completely addressed, today the stock market would be under losses. That shows how hope is on India. Okay, that is a kind of speculation. Next, Mr. Modi was making customary remarks at the beginning of parliamentary sessions on Tuesday, which kicked off with President Draupadi Murmu address of the joint sitting of two houses of parliament. So budget will be done with joint sitting of two houses of parliament. As part of your polity, you will be learning about this joint sitting. Article 108 says there is a provision. So article 108 of your constitution, Indian constitution, gives provisions for joint sitting. Article 108, ambulance article. Okay, fine. Amid the unstable global economic situation, India's budget will not only attempt to meet the hopes and aspirations. Fine, this is speculation, and currently as the budget has been released, we can say that this is kind of outdated. Simply, you can understand that it is going to, so Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman will make all efforts to meet the aspirations. Of course, she has tried very well to meet all the aspirations of the society, and nothing more than that in this particular article left. Let's see. Next, what does the survey says? First thing, out of pocket health spending still high despite government chipping in. What is this? Out of pocket health spending. What is out of pocket spending? Out of pocket expenditure. So suppose government is giving different kind of subsidies. Let's say if you go to, let's say hypothetical situation, let's say government has given that any healthcare services all over India, as long as you are citizens of India, your healthcare services in government hospitals are of free of cost. Let's say government has given such kind of provisions. Okay. Then still if you are opting for private, basically what is out of pocket expenditure is that anything that you are spending on yourself other than what government hasn't addressed you. So let's say government has given you certain kinds of subsidies or health insurances Here in the case health insurance. Why? Because this particular article deals about out of pocket expenditure on health spending. So this shows that country's citizens are spending on their own regarding their health expenditure, even despite the government is giving them provisions. They are giving them certain kinds of provisions, they are giving certain kinds of programs that are being addressed, still people are opting for their own spending. That is what this particular article says. So for you in detail, if you wanted to understand what is out of pocket expenditure, just a small definition, we will again go. Okay. See here, it is the money what is out of pocket expenditure. It is the money paid directly by the households at the point of receiving health care. This occurs when services are neither provided for the free of cost through government health facility, nor the individual covered under any public or private insurance or social protection scheme. So you need to understand that what is this out of pocket expenditure. Out of pocket expenditure. So government gives subsidies or certain kinds of benefits, welfare schemes, benefits. There will be targeted citizens for this. That can be weaker sections or any other people. Targeted sections, right? Can be any people. It can be for women alone, or for children alone, or for SCs, STs. So based on that particular scheme, or BCs, OBCs, or EWS, anyone, it can be anyone, but only targeted citizens will be given such kind of benefits from the government. But what is this out of expenditure says? So if these people, if the citizens are not being covered in this particular criteria, people are not being covered in this particular criteria, then what they will do? They will go for this out of pocket expenditure. That means if I am a middle class, I am from a middle class family where I am above this particular weaker section, yet I am a middle class, that means my income is low, but it is still greater than or more than this particular weaker sections criteria. So I am not from SC, I am not from ST, I am not from OBC, I am not from EWS, yet I am also part of low income or low income generated family. Okay, then what I will be opting for? I have to spend on my own health issues. I need to spend out of my own pocket only. So such kind of people in India are growing. So I think it's clear what is out of pocket expenditure. Whatever the expenditure, see the definition, the money directly paid by households at the point of receiving health care. This occurs when there is no provision of free of cost by the government, or they can be excluded from any public or private insurances. So any kind of social beneficiary schemes, if they are excluded from that particular list, then they will come under, or they will go for their own out of pocket expenditure. So this article says that out of pocket expenditure is growing, which means that middle class families are going to increase or increasing. That you need to understand. Okay, that is underlying thing. Next, almost half of all health spending in India is still paid by patients themselves directly at the point of treatment, though out of pocket expenditure has dropped as the government shares of spending on healthcare went up significantly after 2013-14 economic survey 2022-23 says. So what is this particular thing says? It says that it is still high despite the speculations of economic surveys. Still, even the government is spending more on health sector, still the out of pocket expenditure is huge, which says that the people out of that weaker sections are growing. Next, the share of government in the total health expenditure was just 28.6% in the financial year 2013-14, but rose to 40.6% by 2018-19. So what is this share? The share of government in the total expenditure of health. So in the total expenditure of health, total expenditure of health in 2013-14 was 28.6%. Government share was 28.6%, whereas in 2018-19 it grew around 40.6%. 40.6% it grew. The latest year for which the data is available. So that is the latest year for which the data is available. There was a concomitant, just a moment, concomitant decline in out-of-pocket expenditure from 64.2% 2013-14 to 48.2%. So you need to understand that the out-of-pocket expenditure has decreased from 2013 to 2018-19. Out-of-pocket expenditure is the money paid by households, so exactly which I was telling about. It is money paid by the households out of their own pocket without having the beneficiaries received from government, right? So, or from any, which I have already discussed. So, government hike spending for 2018-19, India's total health expenditure was how much? Around 6,000 crores. Around 6,000 crores, sorry, around 6,00,000 crores. 6 lakh crores. Just a moment. Around 6 lakh crores was, so 5,96,000 in the sense, around 6 lakh crores was government spending in 2018-19, then which is 3.2% of the GDP and 4,470 per capita. This includes current and capital expenditures incurred by the government and private sectors, including external funds. So what does this say? So government has increased its spending. So again during pandemic we can see clearly that government has increased spending on health sector. From then the level of increasing on health spending has never decreased so far. So here you need to understand that the speculation is that around 6 lakh crore fund has been spent on health, which is around 3.2% of GDP, right? So which includes both your current and capital expenditure from both government and private sectors or external funds. Government health expenditure for that year amounted for 40.6% of the total, while out-of-pocket expenditure remained marginally high. So you need to understand that health expenditure which government has given for these people, for targeted citizens, was 40%, whereas out-of-pocket was around 48.2%. This shows that the actual beneficiaries or the people who needed beneficiaries are not correctly addressing. That you need to understand. Next, in states such as Uttar Pradesh, the out-of-pocket expenditures were as high as 71.3%. See, the targeted audience were very less for this particular program of spending which government is giving. Okay. Next, fine. It has been recommended several times the government's health expenditure be raised from 1.2% to 2.5% GDP by 2025. So what is the current target? So from 1.2% of GDP, the speculation is that means current budgets should be having 2.5% of GDP spent on health by 2025. So this is the given target. Okay. Next. So out of this, yeah. So it is given that the health sector has reached 2.1% of GDP of 2022-23. That means last year budget has reached to 2.1% of GDP spending on health sector. Okay. So this year how much it is, we will see in the next session. Okay. So an increase from 1.6% of 2020-21. So in 2020-21 it was 2020-21 it was 1.6%, whereas 2022-23, that means last financial year it was 2.1%. This year how much? We will see in tomorrow's class. Okay. Next. The rest all not required. Let me go to other article. Okay. Shipbuilding industry can be bolstered? Atmanirbhar Bharat, says survey. So, you need to understand that where our country's focus is. So, other thing is your transport facilities, infrastructure. So, here what this particular survey, economic survey, says that shipbuilding industry can be bolstered to Atmanirbhar Bharat, says survey. Identifying the shipbuilding industry as a strategic, just a moment. Yeah. What is the issue? Yeah. So, shipbuilding industry is a strategic important industry for its role in energy security, national defense and the development of heavy engineering industry. So, shipbuilding industry alone can have the domino effect on what? Energy security, national defense. Obviously, if your ship industry is tight, it is addressing the nation's need for its defense. Next, and the development of heavy engineering industries. So, for all these, it can have the domino effect, says the economic survey 22-23. Noted that it has the potential to increase the contribution of industry and the services sector to national GDP. Obviously, anything that is manufacturing can be three parts, can be agriculture, can be manufacturing, can be services. All three ultimately contributes to GDP. In the same way, ship industry will come under your infrastructure part, manufacturing part. So, this will also be adding up to the country's, nations or to country's GDP. That's what survey says. So, with its various direct and indirect linkages with most of the leading industries, its huge dependence on the infrastructure and services sectors to the economy, the shipbuilding industry has the potential to serve the Atmanirbhar mission. So, basically it is one of the key aims, or it will prove or to improve Atmanirbhar Bharat. So, what is Atmanirbhar Bharat? Self-reliant India. So, it is helping in building our own indigenous technologies. That is what says your article. So, with an employment multiplier of 6.48%, 6.48, shipbuilding can generate jobs in remote coastal and rural areas. Almost 6.48 times it can increase the employment in shipbuilding industry if it is focused on. Okay. Next. Based on international shipbuilding statistics, if one takes a conservative marginal consumption, I don't know why this is not coming up. Fine. I'll just explain you what is this, what does this article says. I don't know why this is not moving. Fine. So, what does this says is that it improves almost 6 folds if it is focused upon, if the infrastructure is focused on ship industries. Okay. So, next. So, based on this, based on the international shipbuilding statistics, if one takes a conservative marginal consumption GDP ratio, which is MCGR, marginal consumption to GDP ratio to 0.5, 0.45 for the shipbuilding industry, the investment multiplier should be approximately 1.82. So, one thing I need to explain here is that, for example, the injection of approximately 1.5 lakh crore in naval shipbuilding projects would occur a circulation of 2.73 crore. See, what is it says is that if you spend, in rupees. So, if you spend about 1.5 lakh crore in shipbuilding industry, what can be the level of income from that? Speculation of circulation, the circulation of amount can be around 2.73 lakh crore. Only this is important, which is 0.45 to 1.82 is the returns ratio which you need to understand, right? So, that is regarding your article. Fine. Next. Just a moment. Yes. So next, further the survey said that the study undertaken by Indian Navy for the construction of 7 P-17A frigates revealed that around 3/4 of the total project cost is invested back into the Indian economy. So frigate is one of the Navy based defense mechanism which we have in India. So these frigates we have which protects our country, same it is also a bigger ship, you can say that it is also a bigger ship, frigate. So this frigates P-17A, what defense Indian Navy has stated is that if for this particular Indian Navy for construction of P-17A we have given certain amount. So what happened, it revealed that 3/4 of the total project cost of warships is invested back into the Indian economy. So 3/4 of total project cost, let us say I have spent only 1000 rupees, okay, 1000 rupees to build a particular frigate, almost 75%, that means 750 rupees has come back into my Indian economy. Why? Because I will have certain employment or I will be employing certain kinds of people for building this particular ship or this particular warship. Then I need certain kinds of technological backup. For all these kind of assessment, assembly or for all different stages, whatever the level of income or the level of expenditure we had on frigate has again circulated back into the economy almost 3/4 part. That was the survey which Indian Navy has told. Rest all? Yeah. So that is what the speculation which Indian Navy had told, stating that Navy's shipbuilding projects currently in progress are the various shipyards posed to provide a requisite impetus in the industry, where more than 130 warships has been constructed in Indian shipyards. Currently 41 out of 43 ships, submarines are constructed both in public and private sector shipyards. So basically you need to understand that whatever the spending that we are doing on ship industry is giving you more, that is the one thing. So it is under the speculation of the ratio that 0.45 is the level of percentage which you give as an expenditure. In return you will be expecting about 1.82 times, and current speculation of Navy says that if you are spending around 1%, so if you are spending 100% on a particular project, almost 3/4 has again came back to Indian economy as an income. That is what the survey of Indian Navy says. So go research about P-17A frigates. Okay, important. Next. So that is about that article. Next. So this article speaks about, is a general article which speaks about India needs access to global finance to achieve climate obligations. So we have certain kinds of climate targets. Example, net zero carbon emissions at 2070. By 2070 we have a target that we should be net zero emission. Okay. For that even this budget we have certain provisions. Okay. So to meet these we need obligations on on-time technology. So we need some technological backup from other countries. That is what this particular article says. Nothing more than that. We can see that can be based on your skill enhancement or capacity building or any kind of thing. If you would see today's budget live sessions, you would have seen about green income, green economy, green infrastructure. So all these are a part of climate change targets for India. Okay. Next. So we also need about behavioral changes, countries, then are sustainable development goals as part of your climate change. Okay. To achieve that we need certain kinds of access to global finance. That means we are in need of global finance, in the sense we need economical backup from global countries. That is what this particular article says. Next, share of education in budgetary allocation has fallen over the past 7 years. So over the past 7 years the level of spending of budget on education has been decreased. That is what speculated by survey, economic survey. So what does this article says? If you can see here, see the chart shows the budgetary allocation for education as share of total expenditure. So you have education outlay and total expenditure what can be for this particular financial year, what is the education outlay when compared to your total expenditure. Okay. So, we can see that allocation of this sector declined from 10% to 9.5% in financial year 22-23. So, you can see that earlier it was in 2015-16 it was around 10.4%, drastically decreased in 2019-20 and then levelized, and now it is under 9.5. So, it has reached 9 and now it is under 9.5 for the previous financial year. Okay. Fine. That was a speculation. So, that data you can obtain from here. Out of this, which I wanted to discuss is about budget allocation. For education, as a percentage of total expenditure has dropped over the past 7 years from 10.4 to 9.5. So, that says the survey. Rest all. I don't know why this is not moving. Just a moment. Yes. So, while expenditure on social services, I will just read it out so that it will be clear. So, the expenditure on social services increased from 9 lakh crore to 21 lakh crore. The share of education within the umbrella category shrank from 42.8% to 35.5%. So, what does this say is that on social services, so on social services, that means for people benefit, whatever we are as a government, what they are giving as an expenditure, out of which the social services expenditure has increased. Survey says that social services expenditure has increased from around 9 lakh crore to 21 lakh crore, right? Whereas in this sub-service is your educational services which we provide to our society, right? Education services decreased from 42.8%, okay? And this talks about financial years 2015-16 to 2022-23 previous year. So, it has decreased from 42.8 to 35.5%. So, this is the level of decrease on expenditure on education as part of social services. This is survey speaks about education. So, part of this could be attributed to the faster growth in spending other measures. So, spending on health and other measures due to COVID-19 pandemic. The share of education in total expenditure declined. Again, same thing, stagnant in the following years before rising to 9.5 budget. Okay. So, totally we have seen the allocation, budgetary allocation for education, so a minimal gain of 0.1% points from 2.8% to 2.9% in a 7-year period. Simple, remember that education expenditure from government has been declined from 2015-16 to till date, till previous financial year, which is 2022-23, and that is being addressed by economic survey. Okay, rest all nothing is required. But one speculation what survey says is that the reason behind this can be the allocation of funds to health and COVID-19 precautionary or addressing measures. So, we have just shifted to addressing health measures. So, back then it was pandemic, it was disaster situation which needed to be addressed upon. So, that is what article says. That's all, you can just go through it. We will be sharing this article, so no need to worry, right? Fine. This is another article which you need to see. So, what does this article says? This comes under your international relations. So, Doval, Sullivan hold tech talks in US, Jaishankar meets Nuland in Delhi. So, both has happened at once. What has happened? At talks in Delhi and Washington, India and US officials set the stage in 3 Modi-Biden meetings this year, at the G7 Quad meetings this year, and followed by September G20 in India. NSA attends USIBC event in Washington. So, what is this about? National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. So our National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met with his US counterpart Jake Sullivan and other senior officials in Washington on Tuesday during the inaugural initiative on critical and emerging technologies ISET dialogue with an year announced last year. So what is this about? About the critical and emerging technologies. So about the critical and emerging technologies, India's National Security Advisor has met his counterpart Sullivan in US. So ISET launched during this meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Joe Biden at Quad International Grouping meeting in Tokyo last May is being run in the National Security Councils at the two countries. The meetings in Washington coincided with the visit of US Under Secretary of State Victoria Nuland. Second, what happened? The meetings with Washington coincided with. So here you need to understand that we have met our National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has met his counterpart in US. At the same time, there was another meeting which has happened in Delhi where Nuland, she was from the meetings in Washington is coincided with US Under Secretary of State Victoria. So she was an Under Secretary of State Victoria. With her we had a meeting in India in Delhi, okay, where Mr. Jaishankar, our External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Foreign Secretary Vinay Quatra in interactions that will stage for the visits by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, followed by Mr. Biden in September. So in September again we are going to meet with USA. So there are 3 talks as of now. First thing was the National Advisor, Security Advisor has met in US. Second, with Under Secretary of State Victoria, Miss Doval. So with her we have met. Next other person is that with Nuland who our External Affairs Minister has met, and the third meeting with US would be in September 2023 as part of our G20 presidential meeting. Okay. So focus on South Asia, what they have mentioned. So good talk on Indian subcontinent and Indo-Pacific, the many convergences in our relationship. So this was tweeted by Jaishankar. Mr. Jaishankar has tweeted that India has positive talk, Indian subcontinent has positive talk in South Asia, Indo-Pacific regions. Okay. So apart from this, what Mr. Quatra and Nuland said, the talks had focused on deepening the India and US strategic relationships in 2023. So for each country we have our own individual foreign policy. So what she said was we will be having a strategic deepening of strategic relationship in 2023. So adding that, US looked forward for collaborating on global challenges. So all global challenges we will be addressing, that's what she has told, nothing much specific about. So they took stock on number of initiatives. So what are the initiatives? Which included common strategic interests in Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. So that is one framework. Next, and the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative, and also discussed G20 presidency. So those were the topics which they have discussed with the meeting. One is about Quad. It includes Quad, I2, U2. These are the groupings which we have with US and India as common. Quad, I2, U2, then Indo-Pacific Economic Framework and the Indo-Pacific Maritime Domain Awareness. So all these and G20 presidency we had discussions with whom? Where is this? So our External Affairs Minister Jaishankar had, okay. With Nuland, okay, fine. So that and rest of it, nothing is much required. Participation level of women in workforce is concerning. So I think this would be your mostly last article. Let's see. So in this article what President says is that workforce, okay, women workforce in entire demographic dividend of or in entire employment, women's ratio is of concerning. That's what our President says. So India is the 5th largest economy, we already know. So in the world, and now moving towards becoming $5 trillion economy. So our current target is about becoming $5 trillion economy. Currently we are 5th largest economy in the world. A more active role of women would be helpful in achieving this particular goal, where she had said at the 31st Foundation Day celebration of National Commission for Women. So, yesterday was 31st National Commission Day, Foundation Day. So, during that meeting she has mentioned that without women workforce into the country, without adding of women's workforce into the country, the development or the target of 5 trillion economy would never be achieved. That is what she mentioned. So, separate commission, President said that the need had arisen for the creation of separate commission for women. Now, though our sisters and daughters are flying in space and giving leadership in the armed forces, on the other hand, they are becoming victims of domestic violence and facing discrimination and harassment at the workplace. She said that only by improving the status of women in the country would be able to see an overall progress. So, what she said, there is a need for creation of separate commission for women. That is what she has mentioned about. Okay, fine. Next. So, that is it about that particular article. Let us see if there is anything that is important. We will see. So, Japan and NATO pledge firm response to China and Russia threats. So, what this particular article says, Japan and NATO must remain united and firm in the face of security threats. So, Japan, if you can see in the international arena, Japan has security threats with China. And NATO, because of inclusion of again in the Ukraine. So, Ukraine war has started by this membership only, it was a triggering point. So, what they have concise or what they have told is that Japan and NATO should always be united and unified and should fight with unity against whom? China, North Korea and Russia's war in Ukraine, Jens Stoltenberg has told yesterday. So, he is the Secretary General of NATO. Okay. So, warned Beijing was keeping close eye on developments in Ukraine. So, we already know that China is directly supporting Russia in matter of Russia-Ukraine war. Okay. Next, IMF approves 4.7 billion support loan package for Bangladesh. So, IMF has approved. So, what is IMF? International Monetary Fund has approved for $4.7 billion of fund for Bangladesh. So, it is a loan package, help it cope up with soaring energy and food costs. So, food costs and energy crisis, to address these both, it has given financial support of how much? $4.7 billion. Okay. So, apart from that, yeah. So, that is regarding that particular article. Let me see if there is anything else we can wind up. Yeah. Core sectors grew 7.4%, fastest pace in 3 months. So, there are 8 core sectors. Let us see what are the core sectors. So, today's class will be huge because there are more articles related to economic survey. So, we need to discuss about it. Okay, fine. There is no way skipping that. So, we have 8 core sectors, core industries. What are those? Coal, crude oil, natural gas, refinery products, fertilizer, steel, cement and electricity. Totally 8 core industries. So, which comes under your Index of Industrial Production, IIP. So, all these consists of 40.27% of the weight of included in Index of Industrial Production. So, let us see what this article says. Overall 8 core sectors have seen fastest pace. So, all these core sectors have seen almost 7.4% growth within 3 months. That is what this says. So, coal, electricity, steel, cement witnessed a sharp rise, crude oil only sectors to shrink. So, in 8 sectors, crude oil is the only one which should shrink, but overall there was 7% growth. Okay. So, all 8 sectors that constitute 40.3% of IIP reported a sequential uptick with overall output of rising 9.2% over November. So, this quarter, so it is talking about this particular quarter, that there is a 7% hike in overall core industries, out of which core electricity, steel and cement has witnessed huge growth, and only industry which was sinking is your crude oil, because I have already told in the first article where the recession was peaking, right. Next. So, apart from that, IMF has offered And what IMF says about India's growth. So IMF retains India's growth outlook at 6.8%, 6.1% for financial year 22 and 23. So let's see. So on January, IMF has stated that it is expecting some slowdown in the Indian economy next fiscal year and projected the growth to be at 6.1%. So our projection growth was around 6.5%, 6.8%, whereas their growth speculation of IMF of India this fiscal year is 6.1%, which is kind of slowing down of our existing economy. So IMF on Tuesday released World Economic Outlook. So IMF is the one which releases World Economic Outlook. It speculated that India would have 6.1% growth in this particular fiscal year. Our growth positions actually for India are unchanged from our October outlook. So from October outlook, there is nothing that needs to be changed. So we have So we have 6.8% for this current fiscal year, which runs till March, and then we are expecting to slow down of 6.1% in the fiscal year 2023. So till this financial year, fiscal year in the sense till April, from April we will start another fiscal year. No, so till March the expected growth was 6.8%, and post March, the next fiscal year, the level of growth in the country would be projected as 6.1 as of IMF view. Okay. So positive view, they had positive view as it was not changed from October. Rest all nothing much required. Next, domestic pharma market to touch 130 billion by 2023. Very important. So our pharmaceutical will be increased to touch from, it would be increased to $130 billion by 2030. So what is the current one? How much it will be projected, we need to see. So India's domestic pharmaceutical market estimated at 41 billion in 2021. So in 2021, the estimated pharmaceutical industry market in India had 41 billion market, whereas what was in 2020, in 2030, it would grow to $130 billion. So from 41 to expected till $130 billion as of 2030. Okay, which says, who says? Economic survey says. Okay, highlighting the role of Indian pharmaceutical industry globally, the survey showed that the country was ranked third worldwide in the terms of production of pharmaceutical products. So in production of pharmaceutical products, India ranked 3 in world and 14th by value. So by level of income, we are ranked at 14, whereas by level of products of exports, we rank at third position. Okay, it was the largest provider of generic medicines. So for the generic medicines, we are the largest provider. That means first provider, topmost provider. Okay, and have a 20% share in global supply by volume. So global supply of pharmaceuticals, we have 20% by volume. All these are important. Next, besides being a vaccine maker with a market share of 60% globally. So any vaccine maker, we own around 60% stakes in overall global market. Okay. Next, you can pose me doubts if you have anything. Okay. Any doubts? You can pose me. Fine. Next, foreign investment. So you can see cumulative FDI in pharma sector crossed around 20 billion mark by September 2022. So in the last year, our 20 billion mark of foreign direct investment into the market of pharma sector has been reached. Then as FDI flow surged fourfold over 5 years until September 2022 to 699 million. So thing is that our pharmaceutical industry's FDI has witnessed fourfold increase. That means in the last 5 years, our India's pharmaceutical industry has saw fourfold increase in FDIs. Okay. Next, fine. Next, what is the thing that you need to know? Despite COVID resilience, IT to see muted growth this year. So you need to see, despite the existing of your informal recession, let's say informal recession, what survey says is that we have a muted increase, muted growth in IT. So, the information technology industry showed resilience towards COVID pandemic because services almost did not impact because of COVID-19. So, what this particular article says, that information technology business process that fine. So, it says that, yeah, I hope this will be clear, just a moment. Right. Yeah, referring to NASSCOM report, the survey said that end user technology companies benefited from a rise in investment, more complex technology and convergence use cases and the prioritization of enterprise scale data and cloud strategy. So, what does this article says is that IT has seen growth. So, it has certainly recorded 15.5% growth in the financial year. So, IT services has seen about 15.5% growth rate in the past financial year, says the survey. So, referring to NASSCOM report survey, it says that the end user technology benefited from these particular technological wise implements. So, what are those? Can be your rise in investment. So, it has seen growth in rise in investment, more complex wise technologies has been developed, then prioritization of enterprise scale data, cloud strategy. So, all these have developed in IT services. New markets, many firms are now forming on new markets prominently from Middle East and Latin, leading to market diversification which will increase IT BPM sector resilience in coming years. So, as we are not only completely depending on the West, we are also seeing about other countries like Middle and Latin America, where the growth is seen in this IT and BPM sectors. Okay, fine. So, that is regarding article. So, rest all nothing is important. So far we have seen what economic survey. So, let me go to the top. Yeah. So far we have seen what economic survey. Today's paper is entirely focused on economic survey and its domino effect on different each other sectors. How each other sector has showcased its performance in different areas. Is it growing or is it depleting? So, everything we have discussed as part of your economic survey. Just so far, if you have any doubts also, you can post in the chat box. I think it's clear. Okay. Thank you everyone. Every day we will have a session from 3 o'clock. Okay. Everyday paper analysis. Thank you for the session. Thank you everyone.